Leonardo da Vinci is undoubtedly one of the greatest geniuses ever to have lived, and this has led many people in the UFO community to speculate about where this amazing intellect came from, and if he could have otherworldly connections. Some people even claim to have found messages and clues from Da Vinci, pointing to an extraterrestrial involvement hidden in his work, including one of his greatest achievements, the Mona Lisa portrait. Join myself and Neil here on Aliens Explored as we discuss this controversial mystery that could be worthy of a Dan Brown novel in itself. And today's episode is sponsored by our Patreons, and in particular our Explorer of the Week, Toby Fomes. Now, Toby has wonderfully supported us for a long time now, and we very, very much appreciate it. So thank you, Tony, and thank you to all our Patreon patrons. Now, if you too want to help support us in making this and future episodes, then go over to patreon.com/aliens explored and pick a tier that suits you. We've got all sorts of wonderful rewards and awards available for people at different levels. So you too could be Explorer of the Week, just like Toby.
Aliens Explored is a weekly podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a skeptical perspective, whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it? Hello listeners, and welcome back to Aliens Explored, your weekly podcast looking at the mysterious skies, the mysterious bottoms of the oceans, the mysterious smoke-filled back rooms where all sorts of plots are hatched, and of course occasionally delving back into the ancient past. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Neil Kelly.
And I'm your other host, Stu Jackson. How you doing, Neil?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yes.
Good. I'm coming to the end of my corporate career with Monopoly Life Size and getting ready to do a musical.
Yes.
For a few, 4 shows. But
well, promote your. Let's see. When does this episode go out? This episode goes out to the public. Some of our Patreons get it a week early, of course, but publicly 23rd of June.
23rd of June. Okay, that's the day I finished at Monopoly Life Size.
Okay, then, so promote your musical then. Tell people what they want to see.
I'm appearing in a musical at the Cockpit Theatre on the 8th and 9th of July. It's called A Soldier's Woman, and it promises to be a thoroughly entertaining show. You can just Google A Soldier's Woman and it'll bring up the Cockpit Theatre website, which is a bit of a pig to navigate and difficult to buy things on, but if you persevere, you'll be able to come and see me performing in a musical.
So, just to be clear for our listeners, that's the Cockpit Theatre in London.
Yes,
England.
4th Street, London, England. Yes,
because do you know what? On social media, so I'll say first of all, obviously break a leg on that.
Thank you.
I'm certainly hoping to come and see that. Now, don't think I've ever heard you sing.
No. Even in opera, I didn't sing.
No, absolutely. So that will be an interesting experience.
Good. I
forward
hope
to seeing it.
Thank
Definitely
you. And how are things? How are things with you?
Oh yeah. I'm yeah. Yeah. I'm doing okay. Thanks.
Good.
I haven't really got anything new to tell you and the listeners. No. No, that's about it.
Life goes on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm doing bits and pieces of work, but it's not sort of public work. It's sort of I do murder mysteries for like hen parties and things like that quite often.
Oh, nice.
As well as other kinds of work, but no, nothing public coming. I mean, I'm in a feature film that's coming out. I've just discovered in about a year's time, and we filmed it about a year ago, so that was like taking forever. And there's a TV series coming out this year. British TV series this is called The Burning Girls, based on a book. And all I know is it's coming out sometime this year. Don't know when.
So you've got it all going on, really.
But this is all stuff that I filmed like last year. So but currently not much going on.
Any artworks in progress?
Well, do you know what? I love visiting art galleries, and I love the segue that you've done there. Because, yes, we are, of course, talking about... It's got to be, like, if not one of, like, the most famous work of art in the world, the Mona Lisa.
The Mona Lisa by Leonardo Da Vinci. I'm sure, even if you're not an art lover... That's the one piece of art that most people would be able to name.
Yes.
Have you ever seen it?
Not the real thing, no. Although I've been to France a couple of times, I've never visited the Louvre.
Right, I've visited the Louvre. Yeah, it's about like being in a Dan Brown novel. But yeah, the thing that struck me about the Mona Lisa is that it's actually smaller than you expect.
Is it 20 by 30 centimetres? Is that about?
I think it's inches. No, it can't be inches. It's not. It's smaller than you expect, and of course there'll be a big crowd in front of it most of the time, so it takes a while to get to it. Yes. You do, as you know, as a deeply ignorant man as I am, you do wonder what all the fuss is about. It's a portrait of a woman. It was a merchant's wife, wasn't it? He painted it on commission, but then couldn't bear to part with the painting, apparently.
Yes, there is an interesting history. So as a work of... Now, I'm not an art expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I do like works of art, and there is some interesting elements, aside from the one that we're going to talk about here today, to this particular piece. So... he went against the styles of the time. Like, female portraiture was quite a common thing. It was... I mean, they're not 100% certain who the model was, but they believe it was Lisa Del Giocondo. Yeah. The kind of the experts in this. That's the best theory, as it were. But her style, or the style of her presentation, her pose, are really unusual in that. So society women at the time would have their portrait, and they'd be shown as being very affluent by being shown in really glamorous clothing or surrounded by trappings of wealth. That was kind of the big thing.
Well, people would always appear in their finery. So when I did heritage work at the Royal Palaces, one of the problems we came up against was that we actually don't know what these people's everyday dress was, because all we've got to go on is the portraits in which they're in all their finery and all their best, and we can be pretty sure they didn't wear that stuff all the time. But of course we had to walk around the palaces wearing something approximate. We had to pretty much look like the guy in the painting.
Yes, exactly. And when you see like historical dramas on TV, I mean, Bridgerton kind of comes straight to mind there. You see people in these amazing, like incredibly convoluted outfits. As you rightly say, they wouldn't have been wearing those on a day-to-day basis, but that's how the TV shows present them. Because that's people's expectations.
And part of the reason is because they don't know otherwise what these people were wearing. There's also a reason why when posing for a portrait, people didn't smile in portraits. And when was the Mona Lisa painted? Was it in the...
It was in the early 1500s.
In the 1500s, even in the 1700s, 1800s, 1900s. People talk about the Mona Lisa's enigmatic smile. Well, people didn't smile in portraits for the simple reason they would have had to hold it for hours on end, and they would have ended up with this weird-looking rictus grin. So I guess her smile it's a sort of smile, but it's the kind of smile you can kind of hold. You can't really hold a toothy grin for hours on end.
Well, it certainly, like I say, went very much against the style at the time. So, I mean, we're saying, like, we don't know what these people would have worn on a day-to-day basis. I think the Mona Lisa is actually probably a good example, because it's nothing flamboyant. It's nothing, it seems to me to be clear, she's wearing clothes that aren't, it's not peasant clothing, but it is... subdued, it's understated. She's not being seen with loads of it's a very sort of plain, natural picture, and that was incredibly unusual at the time. Also the fact that she's looking directly at the viewer. Now that was a thing. You get that in male portraits of the time. But not in female. Women would look away, they'd look more demure. It was a whole subservient thing, which obviously, we as a more progressive society, like, is pretty abhorrent to us now.
Looking someone in the eye is confrontational, isn't it? It's declaring yourself their equal. You do not look the king in the eye.
Exactly.
He's not used to it. It's never happened to him
level
before.
Of equality. Precisely. So this whole painting, this stands out at the time really incredibly dramatically. Very, very unusual painting. But
I fear we might be trying the patience of our listeners a bit, because let's talk about why we really want to talk about the Mona Lisa. And the question that we with the title of this episode will be, did Da Vinci hide an image of an alien in the Mona Lisa?
Well, do you know what I mean? I think it's important to establish how unique and different this painting is for its time. I mean, you say about like people holding their faces and like holding expressions for a long period of time. Do you know how long it took him to paint the Mona Lisa?
No.
16 years.
That's a long time to hold a smile, isn't it?
It is. Now, of course, he would have taken initial sketches and worked from them. But 16 years he worked on this. It was clearly an incredibly important piece to him.
Yeah, I'm guessing. I mean, what I know about painting, if you spend that long on a painting, it's because you keep changing your mind about it and painting over something you've done before. Or maybe starting from scratch on a different canvas. I mean, so when we're talking about the hidden images, there's two aspects to this, aren't there? There's the images that might have been underneath, that he painted over, that possibly reveal something. I believe...
Yes, X-ray image, or X-raying the piece does reveal, yes, that there are things underneath.
Well, when they digitised it, didn't they? And they found something, what they call a Spolvero underdrawing.
Spolvero was a style at the time. It was used mainly in backgrounds. So basically, what the artist would do is they would paint in the background and then paint over it, but only lightly, to give the slight hint of the background, as if from a distance and out of focus, to give the oh God, I really do sound like an art, like I'm on an art show now. But it would give the illusion, the impression of a further background at a distance, because it's really difficult. You know, if you draw a house on a piece of paper, you've drawn that house and it stands out. But to give the impression that it's way off in the distance, other than drawing it small, but it's still kind of it's sharp. So it's a way they would do that. They would create it small, but then they would like dapple over it. So that's Spolvero. That's a particular technique, art technique.
Okay. So I thought perhaps that's what they thought, that underneath they were seeing something that might be a bit strange, a bit alien. But I think what we're really talking about is Da Vinci's interest in the use of mirrors. He was very keen on mirror writing, wasn't he? He would produce this writing backwards. And if you hold a mirror, if you put a mirror, say, in the centre of the painting, so you've got you're not actually looking at the image, you're looking at half the image and its mirror image, and then gradually move the mirror across so that it compresses it. A bit like one of those, do you ever read Mad magazine? One of those Al Jaffee fold-ins where you'd fold in the back page and create a different picture. You get some of that, and you get something that looks like what we would identify as, in fact, various kinds of E.T., not just in the Mona Lisa, but in other paintings of his as well.
There are, and the positioning of this is quite important. So you're absolutely right about the mirror aspect and his reverse writing, which he's famous for. But reflected imagery is a thing that Da Vinci was particularly fascinated by. He's also, and this sounds like I'm going off on a tangent, but I'm really not, but he also had an absolute fascination and obsession with hands, the human hand. So, I mean, there are many, many examples of, you know, him showing dissections of hands and things like that, but he also used hands really critically in his portraiture to draw attention, to draw the viewer's attention. So you're absolutely right. If you were to place a mirror basically up alongside where the Mona Lisa's hand is, and where her hand is almost pointing, the way she's positioned, and it's a really dramatic pose in that sense. Then yes, you get basically the image of looks like a grey alien. Wearing a helmet. Yeah. But is that because our images of aliens are actually basically a human face that's been kind of squeezed into that sort of egg shape? This is not in the Mona Lisa's face. It's not utilising the Mona Lisa's face itself. It's more kind of folds in her clothing and the play of shadow. So there's that. But you also picked up on something else really quite interesting, is that it's not just the Mona Lisa. So his other works, it's there if you do it in the Last Supper. You get the same effect there. And the Virgin of the Rocks. Another. This, I suppose, this painting is much less famous in the public, but it's again another painting. You've again got this really dramatic hand gesture, and if you put the mirror just at the right point there, you get, and it's much clearer with the Virgin of the Rocks. Absolutely, it's a grey alien with those large oval almond-shaped eyes and the sort of inverted pear-shaped head. Absolutely, it's quite a clear image if you do put that mirror there, as you rightly say.
Yeah, but I guess what you have to wonder is, was it really deliberate, or is that just I mean, it is a coincidence that it seems to be a recurring theme amongst his paintings. One of the things, I mean, talking about mirrors, one of the things that supposedly defines beauty in our Western culture is symmetry of your face. And most of us might think that our faces are fairly symmetrical, but if you take a picture of yourself and hold a mirror vertically on the middle, and then look at what's there, so what you're looking at is the left side, say the left side of your face and its mirror image next to it, and then repeat the same on the other side, so you're looking at the right side of your face and its mirror image, you'll actually see two different faces. I mean, yes. Close. I mean, you could be brothers, or sisters, but it's not the same face for most people. It's quite rare so I can see his interest in. I mean, does the Mona Lisa match up? I mean,
well, her face is not straight on, so you wouldn't be able to do that with her face. That's
not quite as readily, but. And this thing about hands. Do you remember there was someone did a portrait of the Queen, and it was widely criticised because she had these big sort of banana hands like bunches of bananas or sausages, and it was widely criticised. But of course, and I think she kept her hands hidden. I think it was more truthful than people realised, because certainly when we had the coronation of the King earlier this year. He was being referred to by Republicans as old sausage fingers. And you look at his hands, they really are these fat, swollen, they're not pretty hands, they're not elegant. So,
Wonder if that's a sign of inbreeding.
I wonder.
I think our views are well known to the listeners.
Yes.
About the royals. Okay, so you asked the question, could this just have been coincidence? Da Vinci, I mean, this is widely known. It's not news. He was an absolute genius. Not only with all the things that he invented, but artistically he was a genius. He's one of the few people to ever be able to draw a perfect circle freehand. Because there's that tale, isn't there, where he's introduced to some foreign dignitary or something. I forget the exact details, and oh yes, he's this amazing artist as well. You're an amazing artist, like, prove it. So he just drew a circle on a piece of paper, and it was a perfect circle. And I mean, a lot of his technical designs, I mean, obviously centuries ahead of their time. He drew something that looked like I suppose it was depicted, it was supposed to be a parachute, but it was more like a sort of solid hollow pyramid. And someone decided to test it, and went up in a balloon dangling underneath this thing. Obviously they had their own backup chute, but they released this thing and it worked. It worked. He came down gently as a parachute, not a sort of soft parachute as we know it, but this solid object that was just like a hollow pyramid with obviously no bottom to it, and it worked. Yeah, absolutely. They've done similar with his gliders that he designed, and absolutely. But also, he put so much care and attention and detail into his works of art. Nothing is there by accident. Everything had some significance, some meaning there. Like I say, you take the gestures of the hand. It's really quite a dominant part of the painting, and having spent 16 years on it, it's hard to imagine that something, especially something that is repeated, is there as a matter of accident.
No, but when you think, we have ways of looking at paintings now that that even someone like Da Vinci wouldn't have thought of, that ways of looking not just at what's on the surface but what's painted all underneath it and seeing all sorts of images that come out. He wouldn't have been able to, if he'd painted over things, he wouldn't have been able to see how what he's painted over interacts with the thing that he's painted it over with.
No, that's very true. And it was very common at the time to have different paintings underneath because the cost of canvas was so high. If someone did needed a painting for a commission, they would actually, rather than use a fresh piece of canvas, they'd just they'd basically whitewash the canvas and then start again. So it really is very common with older works of art from that period to find other pictures underneath. But that's not the case with the Mona Lisa. He did start with a fresh piece of canvas, and it was it's not that he started it, made mistakes, whitewashed it over, started again. That didn't happen. He's just spent so long on the absolute detail. The only one that I know of that took, I'm sure there are plenty that took longer, but it puts me in mind of the Fairy Fella's Master Stroke by Hieronymus Bosch. Are you familiar with that one?
I'm familiar with Bosch and his hellish kind of depictions, but
he only did the one piece.
No, he did loads, didn't he? He did
thinking about the right?
The Haywain and not the Haywain, but all sorts of fish with legs and birds with gills and all sorts of.
Sorry, I'm giving you the wrong artist. The wrong artist. It was by Richard Dadd.
Okay, he did that one painting.
He did the one painting. It took him. It actually took him 9 years. So it actually didn't take him as long, but incredibly detailed. The Fairy Fella's Master Stroke. He wrote it whilst in an insane asylum. Which, after he murdered his father. But he paints all these weird creatures, these strange, fantastical creatures, and claimed absolutely vehemently that they were real, that he'd seen them. Maybe that's a topic for another episode.
Maybe,
we'll think about that one. But here's the thing. Now, I'm going to do a complete and utter turnaround on this, on the topic of the Mona Lisa, though. Before I do you know how much it's worth?
I'm sure it's a value that changes over time according to whatever someone's prepared to pay for a million. I don't know, 100 million or something.
At last, although the last estimate was done some years ago, where it was about 100 million, but by today's money it's been estimated it's about 870 million. For a small bit of canvas with a bit of pigment on. 870 million.
Sorry, I just have this image of this merchant constantly pursuing Leonardo. I said, when am I going to get this? When am I going to get this portrait of my wife that I've paid for? Until eventually Da Vinci says, you're not getting it. I'm buggering off to France.
Yeah, that's about it.
I'm taking it with me.
Well, and of course, it wasn't famous at all in the public's eye. It was only when it was stolen in 1911 that it actually gained any public notoriety.
Right, but I seem to remember that it was during the 1980s when artworks started attracting these astronomical prices. Mm-hmm. And one story I heard about it was that in Japan, they made laws about how much corporations were allowed to give each other in terms of, I suppose, bribes or whatever. Limited
bonuses.
There might have been bonuses. I think it was more to do with sweeteners between corporations.
Right.
And the way they would get around it would be to say, well, here's a painting. It's officially valued at whatever, but let's say it's valued at $20 million. And you can take that as $20 million. And as long as everyone agrees that it's worth $20 million, then it's worth $20 million. That's all it takes for a painting, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, something's only ever worth what somebody else is willing to pay for it.
Yeah. But I think it was only really then people started to become... I know it was the start of neoliberal capitalism and values changed, and this they know the price of everything and the value of nothing. That kind of But yeah, I think it was then that that's when. I mean, I dare say Mona Lisa was always a treasure.
Well, and it would be utterly irreplaceable, of course.
It didn't get looted by the Nazis, did it? I mean, they liked that kind of art.
I honestly don't know. I don't know on that one. I know that. Yeah, that was a big thing because it was easier to carry out paintings than it was, gold bullion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So yes, like I say, I'm going to do this turnaround, even though this alien image does appear in multiple paintings. I think, personally, there's two things going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, kind of two. I say two things. It's the same thing, really, but from two angles. By putting a mirror in a random place, for one thing, it's going to be like a Rorschach test, where people see images, that's a Rorschach test for our listeners who don't know. That's an ink blot test, it's commonly called, where some psychotherapists or psychiatrists will use this, where you get blots of ink on a paper and you fold the paper over in the middle and open it up again, and you've got this reflected image, and then they'll say, what do you see in there? Well, I see my dad being murdered. I mean, that's kind of gives you an insight into what's in the patient's mind.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there's a degree of that with this. I think when you put a reflected image in there, you're going to see images. Also, there is this human predilection where we see faces in things.
Yeah.
There's actually a Facebook page that I follow called Faces in Things, or Random Faces in Things, or something like that, where it'll show a picture of a telephone, but from the right angle it looks like it's got a face.
Yeah, or the windows in a house or a tree, or you see the faces.
Exactly that. So I think those two things together, I think it's an element of people wanting to see see some hidden messages. I mean, people searching for hidden messages in the Mona Lisa, there's nothing new about that at all, and people have been doing it for a very, very long time. Whether or not there is, I think it's very, very unlikely. I think he was just an absolute perfectionist.
He was a perfectionist. He was a genius. I mean, you can speculate. Was he visited by extraterrestrials who gave him this extra insight? Was he an extraterrestrial with a completely different way of looking at the universe? I mean,
it has been speculated.
It's been speculated about lots of people, isn't it? Who have broken ground in new areas. It's been speculated about the Beatles, for instance.
Really, I'd not heard that one.
Where did they come from? Do they come from out of space or something? Just bring this music with them. They just somehow knew how to lead the way for a while.
No, I've heard it said of Einstein. That he might have been a hybrid. An alien hybrid. But yes, I honestly don't think there's anything in this. I think this is people wanting to see it, combined with, like I said, there's a name for it, isn't there, that where we see faces in inanimate objects. Yeah, there's a particular name for it, which I've forgotten. But yeah, that's what I think it is. That's my speculation as to what it is. What do you think, Neil? Have I got it wrong? Is there really an alien there?
No, I think it's something like that. I mean, I'd have to investigate further. Is this something particular to Da Vinci's paintings? And is it caused by the shape of something that he painted, an item of clothing or piece of furniture or something, which when you mirror image it just creates this image of what we recognise to be an alien grey or similar. But yeah, I think it's more likely accident. It's hard to say. Very hard to say.
Well, the other paintings that we mentioned, the Last Supper and the Virgin of the Rocks, it's actually the faces of the protagonists in those paintings, and the way that the mirror sort of bisects them, combined with the fact that their head is on an angle, means you get this alien grey effect with their head.
Okay, so it widens at the top because it's further away from the mirror,
and narrows at the bottom. Exactly. So yeah.
So the mirror's not going straight down the middle of their face. It's their face is leaning off to one side.
Exactly. It's going straight down the middle of the paper, but yes, not the actual face itself. Yeah. So I think if you were to do that with anybody's picture, you'll get that effect.
Yeah. There is an interesting video where this is demonstrated. You can see the images of extraterrestrials being revealed in the Mona Lisa on the History Channel, and that segment, there's about a 4 or 5 minute segment that's available to watch on YouTube, and you can see for yourself where those images come from.
Right. Oh, interesting. One to look for. Well, there we go. And what do you think, though, listeners? Have we got it wrong? Are the aliens really hidden in plain sight, or hidden in layers of clothing in the Mona Lisa and other paintings? Or do you agree with us? Do you think it's all a bit of fun speculation, but not really to be taken too seriously? You can let us know via the usual means. You can email us aliensexplored@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter by searching Aliens Explored, or you can visit our Discord channel if you are one of our Patreon members. Oh, we're on YouTube as well, don't forget. I'm going to wish you good luck with your... Actually, no, I'm not going to wish you good luck. I'm going to wish you to break a leg.
Thank you.
With your musical. And do you know what? We'll put a link in the description below as to so people can buy tickets for it. And listeners, if you are going to see it, let us know, and let us know what you think about it afterwards.
Amazing.
Maybe email me.
Yeah, then you can tell me about it. Do you know, in Germany they don't say break a leg, they say break your neck.
Break your neck?
That's what they said to me anyway, so.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So join us next time when we'll be discussing a relatively recent investigation by the British government into UFOs. I mean, 20 odd years ago, that's fairly recent in my book. This is, of course, Project Condign.
Not to be confused with the Condon Committee.
No,
Project Condign.
Not to be confused with condoms. Yes.
Yeah, you could come a real cropper there, couldn't you?
Oh, you could indeed. Yes, no, this is Project Condign we'll be talking about, so you don't want to miss that one. In the meantime, keep looking at pieces of artwork, because hey, everyone should look at artwork. It's pretty and interesting. And of course, keep watching the skies. Take care for now.
Catch you next time. Bye bye.
Aliens Explored is a Fecal Films production in association with Juicy Falls. Music by Darren Mafucci and editing by Stu Jackson. Find us on Twitter or Facebook by searching Aliens Explored, or visit us on aliensexplored.com.